And now on Who's Views, it's time for the latest headlines with JT and the Whotastic panel.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Who's Views. Hope you are all well. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening with us. Don't forget, it's all about your views, that we want to know what you think on this show. And coming up, your headlines tonight are Matt Smith triggers the usual suspects on Twitter, X. Doctor Who is ambitious and brave, according to a BBC boss. And Millie Gibson is down in the dumps, allegedly. To join me tonight to talk all about this is, of course, Paul and Third Doctor Ian. Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hello. Listen, we're going to start off, if we may as well, please, Who viewers, with some sad news. And it would be wrong for us not to do this as well, because just before the weekend, we had some very sad news about a couple of actors that have been in Doctor Who. And you'll know what this is about. But yeah, we lost the fantastic and the gorgeous and the wonderful Pamela Salem on Thursday. This was when the news broke about this one. Now, of course, we all know this fantastic actress. She was in Robots of Death as Toos. She was Rachel Jensen in Remembrance of the Daleks. She was a Zoanum voice as well in Face of Evil. So there we go. There's a credit there. But we all know her as well for things like she was in Blake 7. She was Out of the Unknown. She was in The Tripod, Into the Labyrinth. She was in the uncanonical, allegedly, Bond film, Never Say Never Again. And one of my favourites as well, French Fields, which was an ITV comedy back in the 80s, if you remember, guys. She was in that one as well. Yeah. So, yeah, we lost her. That was really sad news on Thursday night, wasn't it?
It was very much so. I was very fond of her as an actor. She was very good in lots of different things. And my particular favourite, apart from Doctor Who, obviously, was Into the Labyrinth. Her and Ron Moody scaring you. Fantastic stuff. Loved it.
Yeah. And she was a joy if you ever met her, of course, at conventions. She was an absolute gem. And she was wonderful to chat to. She really came across as a beautiful person inside and out. And yeah, she's going to be very sorely missed on the Doctor Who circuit by, I think, all of us, especially all of us that grew up with proper Doctor Who back in the 20th century. What a star. What an absolute star. So we'd like to say and send all our love to Pamela's family and friends. Of course, that wasn't the only person that we lost just before the weekend, because the legendary, and I can't say anything other than that for him because he was incredibly larger than life. We also lost on Friday. The news came through that the one and the only John Sabadent had passed. Now, from Doctor Who point of view, he played the Squire in The Visitation. But as you can see from the picture I've selected there, he was known to millions for his role as Fred Elliot. I said Fred Elliot in Coronation Street. And he really, really, really was massive in that show, wasn't he, John? He really made his mark, and the British public took him to their hearts, didn't he?
I've never been a Corrie fan, but I knew who he was and I knew who his character was, which would say something, because I just paid no attention normally to Corrie. But obviously I remember him from The Visitation, and although he was only in those opening scenes, I mean, he got that character down right. You know, that grumpy, gruff old man that wanted his posset now, and before he went, you know, incorrigible and all that kind of thing. But great character to say he was in it such a short period of time. But
he would have made a great Richard Mace had Michael Robbins not been available.
Oh yeah,
you can see the performance style very much very similar. But I wasn't a massive fan of Corey either, but I had seen bits of Fred Elliott, and he's a very funny character, great actor. He was in Yes Minister as well, playing various ministers and that as well. Fabulous actor.
He was actually not. He was also, I saw him in the week there in The Avengers. He was in A Clockwork Orange. Blake 7 again. Blake 7. He was in Gandhi, the 1982 film. The Remains of the Day, that big film from '93 that many of us will remember. And he was also in The Phantom of the Opera on the West End. He did an awful lot, did Mr. Savadent, an awful lot of stuff. He was brilliant. But as I say, it was that role that brought him to the attention of the great British public. I said the great British public.
Well, I often
Corey,
wonder if he based his character, Fred Elliott, on Foghorn Leghorn. Very similar character there. I don't know if I can use that character's name anymore, but that was a fantastic character too. But yeah,
it was. But listen, I was lucky to meet John as well, and he was a gent, and he was larger than life. You know, what you saw, you know, was what you got basically. But he spoke a little bit more posh. You know, hello, darling, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking, what could I possibly say? And then on Twitter, X came, if I may, a lovely tribute from writer and television writer Gareth Roberts. So Mr. Roberts said he worked with him, of course, on Coronation Street because Mr. Roberts was writing Corrie. And he said, my favourite John Savardant story, and there were many, as I recall it, as he recalled it to him during his Corrie Street days. He was stocking up on some Christmas booze one year at a very posh off-licence in the West End of London. Ahead of him at the counter, there's a woman placing an order. John Savardant thinks, oh, damn. I say, oh, damn. I'm sure I've worked with her in something, but for the life of me, I can't remember what, or even her name. So he tries to strike up a conversation with the said woman. Oh, hello, my darling. Lovely to see you again, he says. Bit of actor's chat. She's polite, but a bit icy. How's work? Are you doing panto this year, he asks. No, she replies with a bit of a stare. She heads off. John Savardant thinks, oh, bit toffee-nosed her. Wish I could remember her name and what we were in together. I know that face so well. A few moments later, the penny drops. Oh, my God, that was Princess Margaret. Isn't that brilliant? Absolutely brilliant. And I just thought that summed him up. So again, from his very brief but very memorable performance in Doctor Who as the Squire in The Visitation, we're sending all our loves and thoughts to Mr. Savardant's family and friends there. God bless them. At least we've got them all forever on our DVDs and Blu-rays, eh? What a shame. Let's have a look and see who's in the chat. Hello, Who viewers. Nice to see you all. Oh, you have started already, so it's absolutely fantastic to see you all. We started a few there. We've got Doug here saying hello, Who viewers. Nice to see you, Doug. Nice to see you. We've also got Kirsty's in the chat. Hello, Kirsty. And Garbage are in the chat, making sure everybody are fine and dandy in the chat. Thank you both. Very important parts of the team. We've got Paul. Hello, Paul. Nice to see you. Kirsty's actually saying hello, boys, with the Z.
How was your party, Kirsty? Was it fun?
How's your headache? We've got Cybermatch Strike saying hello. Yes. Blue Captain Jack is with us. It's nice to see you all there. Who else we got here? Oh, of course, we've got Matt, the Silent Wee Music King. So nice to see you as well. Oh, Gemma's with you. Gemma, nice to see you. Thank you for subscribing. She must have liked it. She's coming back. Right. Grab a helmet for this particular show because this is Headlines. This is our political opinionated show. We want your opinions, not just these two and mine. We want your opinions as well. So please join in. Nice to hear from you. Yes, Blue Worm is telling us there. Pamela Salem was Moneypenny and Never Say Never Again. I've only watched that once, actually. I might have to go back and see it. Raymond is with us, saying hail. Hail, snow, sleet, this bloody country, whatever you want. It's all over the place. Blue Captain Jack, I say aye. And of course, one of his famous, like, Ashley, I said Ashley.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that in Manchester years ago on T-shirts with a picture of John on it. He must have been delighted by that because he did become a bit of an icon for a little while for that soap opera.
It's amazing what catchphrase can do for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yes, and many of them likes it as well. Maybe likes it. Matt is asking who likes The Crown, and that's because we're coming to talk about Smith in just a couple of minutes. Matt Smith, that is. Kirsty is saying, I like The Crown. I like The Crown too. But please remember, if you're outside the UK, I'm going to say this now, The Crown is not fact. It is a drama based on sort of events that happened, okay? They've embellished it. It's not fact, because apparently some people at the UK, gentlemen, think that The Crown is historical accuracy. It's a soap opera. It's a very posh soap opera, basically. Kirsty is telling us she was with the Angels for a little while. I have no doubt about that at all. And here's Alien Airplanes to join us. Nice to see you as well. Look at this from Paul.
Very wise.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Darren is with us as well. Gosh, I'm saying hello. Sorry, Ian?
And a flak jacket and a gum shield.
Absolutely. So Darren is with us there. Hello, Darren. Nice to see you. Oh, and happy birthday to Pete. Happy birthday, Pete. Our very own Who viewer, Pete. It's his birthday today. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. 21 again, kid.
Happy birthday, Peter. All the best.
Oh,
Have a good
yes.
one.
Happy birthday. I'll have a cup of my tea for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope you've had jelly and ice cream, mate. I hope you do. Yeah, Garbage is saying, yes, it's dramatized. It's not fact. That's important for Dave and myself to actually tell people that, especially outside the UK.
Why it's not historically accurate, I don't know. That's another bugbear we'll talk about later. But changing history, don't do that.
Yeah, Peter's telling a little bit of a white lie there.
Yeah. I can believe that, Peter. Yeah.
I'm meddling
post on Facebook. You had a time machine to watch Web of Fear then in the 60s, did you?
Ooh. Well, listen. Again, just before we get onto the Matt Smith story, you will know that we've just been celebrating our We Love Davros season. We've been celebrating that iconic science fiction series with our review of Genesis, our review of Revelation, and of course our big discussion piece of why a certain showrunner and his blood and woke production team should be leaving an iconic science fiction character well alone. If they can't do it properly, don't bother with it. So you'll know all about that. A lot of you joined us for that. Well, as part of that, I want to again thank the lovely Daryl for sending us an absolutely just hot off the press piece of art that he finished yesterday, apparently. And this is from Revelation of the Daleks. Look at this.
Oh, fabulous.
So this is Davros in the catacombs, and you can just see the arrival of the grey Daleks behind him here. Now, isn't this stunning?
Yeah. It's captured it
It's
perfectly.
amazing, yeah.
And the light coming down from the open door. Oh God, that's amazing. I love that.
He's so talented, isn't he?
Oh my God, yes. He's out of this world.
Yeah. So this is hot off the press. He finished this yesterday, and thank you so much yet again, mate. Daryl, we really appreciate you allowing us to show these gorgeous bits of art that you're doing. These pieces of art, they are absolutely stunning. This one, I just thought, oh wow, we've got to show this as part of headlines.
Such a
Absolutely
unique
gorgeous.
style.
Yeah. Let's see what you guys are all saying about this. Garbage is saying pre-blown up hand.
Yeah.
And very, very nice. Yes, indeed. Kirsty is saying it's stunning. Paul is saying that would make a gorgeous poster with the diamond logo on, 80s style-y. Yeah, absolutely. And Blue Worm, who's an artist himself, is saying, again, very nice art, gives a warm and cozy retro feel. It absolutely does. So again, thank you, Daryl. Really, really appreciate it. But I just thought we've got to have that one as well. Beautiful.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And don't forget that if you are interested in Daryl's work, you can order from telos.co.uk right now, The Illustrated Journey, a visual celebration, where he's got some incredible illustrations of the TARDIS from every single journey it's done over 60 years of Doctor Who. A huge endeavor, which was published earlier last year. It's now available in paperback from telos.co.uk as well. And I hugely recommend it. It's a great book. And it's one of our friends there for Daryl. So if you want to have a treat, go and look it up from telos.co.uk.
And it is a treat.
It is. It absolutely is. Thank you very much for your nice comments on that one. So let's move on to the topics of conversation tonight, Hugh viewers, for everybody as well. And we're going straight to the news about the one and only Matt Smith. Yes, the 11th Doctor is currently appearing in Ibsen's Enemy of the People on London's West End. At this point, I'm going to say the tickets were actually very, very good. The response from the critics, not so. They're saying that Smith is the only one that actually carries the show and tries to keep the thing together. But you know what? That's what critics are paid to do. Criticize. Something that we should actually try to remember in these days when people are being cancelled left, right and centre. Editorial comment. Well, anyway, Mr. Smith was Mr. Smith. That sounds like the computer's about to come out the wall, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
With a fanfare, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Smith was recently on the television, and he was interviewed on the BBC itself. And we'll come to that in a second. And he agreed. This is the thing. He agreed he agreed, which is his right to do this, with the comments made by Rafe Fiennes recently about trigger warnings at the theatre. Now, Rafe Fiennes came out saying, a few years ago we didn't have trigger warnings at the theatre, and theatre is supposed to be immersive, and it's supposed to be an experience, and it's supposed to take people out of their comfort zones in various plays. Believe it or not, Mr. Rafe Fiennes got some criticism for that. So when Matt Smith, of course, comes into the mix, this happens because he makes certain headlines. Matt Smith weighs in on theatre trigger warning debate. Isn't art meant to be dangerous? That's what he said. British actor Matt Smith has said he agrees with Rafe Fiennes that trigger warnings in theatres should be scrapped. The 41-year-old, known for his role in The Crown and currently starring in West End play An Enemy of the People, said people go to the theatre to be shocked and arrested. The interview itself, now this is from The Independent, and what they reported here is that Matt Smith stated that he believes it can lead to art being sanitized, these trigger warnings. The Doctor Who and House of the Dragon actor has also appeared in several professional stage shows, including the current run of the Henrik Ibsen play An Enemy of the People in London's West End. During a recent appearance on the political chat show Sunday with Laura Kussenberg, Smith, 41, is he really, concurred with Rafe Fiennes' recent statement maligning trigger warnings in the theatre. I agree. I watched it, the interview with Rafe there. I agree with Rafe utterly and completely, he said. That's why we go to the theatre, isn't it? To be shocked, to be arrested out of ourselves, to recognise ourselves in front and with an audience. The Crown actor then noted that while he understood the need for alerts for elements such as strobe lighting, which can contribute to seizures and other health crises for people with epilepsy, other audience warnings can hurt the theatrical experience. He continued, but I worry sometimes that we're moving towards a sort of sanitized version of everything, and we're stripping the danger and the invention and the ingenuity out of everything. Isn't art meant to be dangerous? And then it goes on to say here, when it comes to his time in Doctor Who, Smith played the Time Lord in Doctor Who from 2010 to 2013. Continuing his point, the actor noted that the show's lack of trigger warnings played an important part in its popularity. I always thought that was one of the great things of doing Doctor Who, is that you scare children, but in a controlled way, he said. But you did scare them. I mean, imagine going to kids watching Doctor Who, by the way, this might scare you. No, I'm not into this. What are your thoughts, guys?
Well, like you, I'm a bit shocked he's 41. He was 26 when he started Doctor Who, for God's sake. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with Rafe Fiennes and with Matt on this. I think it's crazy to have a trigger warning. I know it seems to be commonplace for TV shows now on cable channels that show old TV. There's constant trigger warnings for things being made at different time, different opinions. But for theatre, I agree what Matt's saying about, it's meant to be dangerous, it's meant to be challenging, it's meant to be interesting. But if you put a trigger warning into it, does that not make it a bit of a spoiler? A little bit? It's going to make it a little bit, I agree about epilepsy, strobe lighting, that kind of thing. But for something maybe happening in the story is a bit challenging, that seems a wee bit pandering, don't you think? A bit mollycoddling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think, Ian?
I think if you need to go to the theatre and change your nappy 3 times, you shouldn't go, frankly. You should probably go to some kind of like play centre in a pub somewhere. If you can't cope with it, don't go. I agree with regards to the strobe lighting for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And that's always been the case. That's always been the case. And more in recent years when they've been using lasers more and more and things like that for exactly the same reasons. But Terry Nation got it right years ago, decades ago, when he said kids like to be scared. And I know we're not just talking about kids in the theatre, but kids like to be scared. And he likened it to creeping up the stairs in the dark to scare themselves, because it's a thrill. It's a bit of an adrenaline rush without having to use drugs or anything seriously dangerous. And taking that away, sanitizing that, it takes away from children part of their childhood, part of growing up. And it gives them a false perspective of the world, that there's never risk, there's never danger. Yeah. But it's introducing them to concepts like that in a controlled way where they are completely safe. And anybody that isn't a child that goes to the theatre and needs a trigger warning seriously needs to go somewhere else, buy a helmet and go somewhere else, because they're just lacking in something that makes a rounded, resilient person. They probably struggle in possibly every aspect of life, and they need help more than trigger warnings, to be honest.
I think what's interesting over the years for film certification, there's always been a certificate for film like PG 18, all that kind of stuff. Whether or not it needs that for theatre seems a bit of a stretch, but maybe they need to categorise certain productions if they are violent or overtly sexual or something like that. But I don't think it seems a bit unnecessary for something that's an Ibsen play or a Shakespeare, particularly. I don't think that's right.
I think it's a little bit different personally. Thank you for everybody in the chat. I'll come to you in just a second. We'll get lots of comments on this. Keep it coming. I'll try and keep up with you as best I can. I think it's a little bit different. I can understand why we have the warnings, and they're not really a warning. It's a certificate, isn't it, to say, right, this is suitable for people under the age of, this is suitable for people of the age, and that's how it works here. So we have what is it now? We used to be the U's and stuff, but I think it's now PG and 15 and stuff. It's years since I've looked at them. I don't know. That's because I'm too old. I can go to anything now because I've got that age. I can go to anything. But but I can understand that because you haven't seen the content of the film, so you certainly don't want to take a little boy or girl into a film, and then suddenly there's a very graphic and sexual scene, for example. Yeah. But if you haven't been to a play, I think this all boils down, though, to common sense. If it's a kid's play, you should be okay. And it's like what Ian was saying there. It's like when you watched Doctor Who as a kid and you were getting scared. You knew you were okay because you were at home. All you had to do is look around, and there might be an adult in the room with you, like your mum, your dad, your grandparents, your auntie, your uncle, whoever it was. The sofa was there. If you had a dog, the dog would have been there. You were in that comfort zone where you knew you were okay. It's similar for the theatre. So, for example, I went to see a few years ago, and I've seen it twice now, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And one of the things I loved on both occasions I went to see it was the kids thrilled, terrified, especially when the what do you call them, the Dementors are flying into the audience. It actually got me for a minute because it's that bit of disbelief, but the kids were thrilled. Oh my god, but they were fine. But it was the choice of the parents to take them because it was Harry Potter, and that's I'm with Ralph Fiennes and I'm with Matt Smith on this one. I just don't think it's right to have trigger warnings in a theatre show. I think it's down to common sense. Read the review.
A friend of mine was a pantomime a couple of years ago, and it was starting even then. She was playing the villain of the panto, and that's interactive part. You boo the villain. You get into that as a kid.
Absolutely.
She was told by the producer of the panto, the professional panto, to tone it down. She was scaring the kids too much. So it's been going on for a long time now. This kind of mollycoddling and trying to protect people. It's really quite.
Well, it is. It's. I mean, you hear it all the time about the United Kingdom now that we're becoming a nanny state. I think this weekend we've actually seen the fact that we have now become a nanny state. It's absolutely ridiculous when you look at our politicians. We have become a nanny state, and there's too many people, especially in show business, as we know from Doctor Who, who are telling us how we should think, how we should feel, what she would do. It's nonsense. Hiya, Jack. Nice to see you. I want to say a special hello to Julia, who's joining us from Exmouth. Nice to see you, Julia. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, come and subscribe to the channel. What do you think about this particular topic, Julia? Are you a theatre goer? Do you think there should be some trigger warnings for people before they buy a ticket? Garbage is saying Matt Smith doesn't say much, but when he does, he is bang on the money. That's the other thing I like about Matt. He's a good guy, isn't he? He just minds his own business. He's not rushing into politics or anything like this. But as Garbage says, when he does say something, it has the impact because he never says anything. He's old school that way, isn't he? Like the actors.
But like you said earlier, though, JT, it's simply his opinion. He's entitled to an opinion on this topic. The headlines were very Matt weighs in on, like it was like really aggressive, and it wasn't, was it at all?
No, not at all. Raymond is saying to us here, great actor, great man. Thank God not everyone is not contaminated with this woke ideology. Yes, it really, really is, isn't it, really? Blue Worm is telling to us, adults like to be scared too. Hello to Gary, who's saying trigger warning life can be bloody hard. And we all know it now as well, don't we? Unless you're on the sign of the trigger warnings and you can't get up in the morning without being offended. Well, you know what? I'm sure they do. Oh, why are my bunny slippers there? I have no idea. Garbage says there are trigger warnings for the Chibnall era. Warning, what follows is crap. Birthday boy Pete is telling us they'll go back to silent movies soon. A talk board held up to cover thoughts. Oh God! Do you know I rewatched the other night, Pete, Minority Report, and I thought that's where we're heading. Do you remember the film with Tom Cruise?
Yeah. Well, it's like a bit like the rephrasing of words in Roald Dahl books and things like that, you know. But have you seen them? Is it Fahrenheit 541? They burn all the books. It's like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like,
but that's the other thing about this, isn't it? We've had all this about rewriting certain books, like Ian Fleming with his Bond books, and then we had the Roald Dahl brouhaha recently as well, where they're rewriting and putting out woke versions of those Roald Dahl beautiful classics. Leave it alone. They are of their time, and there's nothing actually that can trigger or offend you in that. But imagine taking the kids to go and see The Witches, and there's a trigger warning at the beginning saying this involves witches.
Well, it's like having a packet of peanuts and it says this may contain peanuts on it. You know what I mean? Or nuts.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah.
Joining us in the chat, as you'll know in the chat, is Daryl. Again, thank you for that lovely piece of artwork at the top of the show. But he says, how can anyone disagree with common sense? It's surprising that they managed, though, Daryl, isn't it? I mean, they do. They absolutely do. Dalek, I love you, is saying they will put trigger warnings on ghost trains next. You may kid. These doors will open. It's getting to that point, isn't it?
Well, there's already you go into a baker's or something, or a store that's got a hot plate, and they've got a sign saying "Do not touch the hot glass." Duh.
Exactly. Jack is saying here it starts with trigger warnings, ends up with clapping being banned for being triggering. That's an excellent point, actually, Ian, isn't it?
It's sort of like a continuation of the warnings you see on chemical bottles like bleach and things saying do not drink. I mean, ultimately, all you're doing is getting in the way of natural selection. If people are stupid enough to do these things, then, you know, really possibly, yeah, society needs not to have them, because it's not really doing much to the gene pool, is it, by keeping them around? But it gets to such a silly state when people can be triggered by anything. But you were saying about having things taken out of books and rewritten and things, and I hate that. Surprisingly, I know, but I hate that. And there are people making these decisions, and they have the absolute arrogance to decide what other people are going to be offended by. And who gives them that right to decide what you or I or children or anybody else is going to be offended by? And to be quite honest, I'm offended by them. So why aren't they?
And they don't care, do they? But who gives them the right is they've given themselves the right. That's why we're in the position we're in with everything now. And entertainment as well. That was infected by all this poisonous woke nonsense a few years back. I mean, look at the mess that the world went through in 2020. And I'm not just talking about the fact we were all locked in our homes, taking away all of our rights as it did so. And that's a different show and a different conversation completely, isn't it? Really, whatever. But that's what happened. And from there, all this nonsense appears. And it started brewing before then, but suddenly, because everybody was captured and based only on the internet, it seemed to go completely mad. And it's just, they sort of grabbed hold of all this, didn't they? Blue Worm's illustrating it. We are now encouraging people's weaknesses. What caliber will becoming generations be? Well, that worries me. It really worries me. Did you ever see, strangely, the Pixar movement? What was it called? Wall-E. And they're all in that spaceship, and they're all fat, and they can't move, can't think for themselves.
It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when they've got that ship with all the people who do the useless jobs going to to a different planet. It's really that. You know, we're all doomed, I have to say. Yeah.
Well, I sometimes I think so, Paul. Gemma is saying to us here, there is normally an age guidance for theatre productions in the information, and it will say not suitable for young children. Adults need to stop being offended by everything. That's an excellent point, because it is in the programs. It's in the previews as well, isn't it? When you look at it, you know, that is brilliant. Why can't they look at this? Why have they suddenly gone along to these plays and said, I didn't like that, and I wasn't warned about it?
They don't want to read it, JT. They don't want to pay attention to that warning beforehand. They want to go and either be professionally offended, or they want it to be stopped and altered to accommodate them. And that's where we have a perfect example of the tail wagging the dog. And it's a mistake to pander to it. And unfortunately, society has pandered to it for way too long now. It's just become the norm. ridiculous.
Well, it is a minority as well, isn't it? And I like to say, oh well, Alien Airplanes is actually putting this across, and this is the brilliant thing about this show. It's about all views welcome, and we're being told here, like, I understand why all these things need to exist, but it doesn't affect me personally. Though saying that, I am aware the world doesn't revolve around me, so these things may be required for others. I know what you're saying there, but what I would say to you, Alien Airplanes, is go and look at the preview material. Don't just be going into a show and then deciding you're offended by something and complaining loudly that there should be something there, because as Gemma was saying there, you can get the information before you go. It's freedom of choice, and I personally don't see why it should be bending towards a minority that are just going to go purposely in some cases and scream and shout and throw the toys out the pram. Speaking of which, that did happen after this as well. I'm going to come to some fan reactions this week, but I wanted to point out this. Now, there is a newspaper here. I say newspaper, please. I use the word newspaper loosely, everybody. This is a paper that is available across the United Kingdom and is usually left on the tube or the buses because nobody wants to take it home. And there's a reason for that when you actually read it. It's called the Metro. And look at this. Now, the Metro is one of the wokest pieces of nonsense, my opinion, in the UK, and this headline shows you why. Trigger warning: if you're a white male actor, this might offend you. Why do they always have to stoop so low to play the white male card? I'll tell you something, that triggers me, lady.
Well, it's because, like you said, they're having a tantrum in response to this, aren't they? That's the thing. They can't argue. They can't argue and articulate properly without throwing insults at you.
Absolutely. Well, have a look at this, Ian. You're
was it Shitty Twist?
This is from
close. You were close. Yeah.
This is the Entertainment Reporter. I say Entertainment Reporter. I'm sorry, I'm coughing. Kitty Crisp. Now, look at this, everybody, from this woke newspaper. Another week, another white man up in arms about trigger warnings. If Harry Potter actor Ralph Fiennes, 61, had his way, trigger warnings in theatre would be banned, as he told Laura Kusenberg last week. Just 7 days later, the Crown actor, Matt Smith, 41, took to the same BBC show and told the political journalist he agreed utterly and completely with Fiennes. According to Fiennes, theatre audiences have gone too soft, and Smith concurs, suggesting trigger warnings risk sanitising theatre, as he concluded that no, he was not into it. Isn't art meant to be dangerous, the House of the Dragon actor asked, citing Doctor Who as being brilliant at scaring children in a controlled way, without having to tell them, I'm about to scare you, by the way. They are both wrong, says this alleged journalist. Warnings about content are essential for some people, and I can't work out quite why these two actors are so triggered themselves. But Fiennes and Smith are not the first to have taken offence to these tools, which are used to warn audiences about potentially distressing subjects they may find upsetting in a play, film, or TV show. My answer to that immediately is don't bloody go then. She continues. She continues, last weekend, somewhat inevitably, Piers Morgan backed Fiennes, writing, well said, Mr. Fiennes. Absolutely pathetic that audiences need trigger warnings in case scenes upset them. If you're that spineless, don't go. It's hard not to notice a theme here. Every one of these famous faces who take issue with trigger warnings are white men who enjoy all the privilege that brings. Maybe this is the case because trigger warnings have been unnecessarily publicized. It's a lefty woke idea out to destroy the natural order of things, which has so well benefited people like Smith, Fiennes, Tarantino, Morgan, and Callow, to the detriment of everyone else for so long. I agree with Smith that theatre should be dangerous. It should make you think about all those things you'd rather not. It should challenge your perceptions to the point of discomfort and perhaps even change. In some ways, it should be distressing, but only if the audience, real people recovering from real traumas, are made aware of this first. Trigger warnings are there to stop people from having to sit through something they've really not. At the mildest, they could save someone from having a bad day. Without them, one of these 25 women might go to the theatre unaware that there'll be a horrific R-word scene. Without the trigger warning, they are forced to sit through it and appreciate the art. But with a trigger warning, they can simply walk out and avoid this hugely uncomfortable experience before the production starts. That's fair enough, isn't it? So why are these men so triggered by them? What a load of old shit.
It's a shame she's so triggered by people just having an opinion, and that she has to interpret an opinion as somebody being triggered. She's got a disassociation from reality, and she needs help.
I can't stand the racist comment either. It's
No.
always white men, white men. Well, listen, I'm not famous in any way, shape, or form, but I'm a white man, proud to be so, and you're talking complete and utter BS. That was nonsense what you were saying there, and also sort of contradictory, really. If they look and do the research, they don't have to go. They don't have to go. And there's enough information out there, as we've already touched on, to say, oh, there's this scene in this particular one which involves something like this. So don't go to it if that's going to affect you in your personal life. It's common sense, surely.
Generally, you would do some research. The film comes out. Oh, is it any good? You look at a review, or you might watch something on YouTube or whatever. If it's the genres that we like, we might watch somebody's review, maybe Critical Drinker or something like that. The ones that we really like, and get a decent balanced view about it. And generally, if there's going to be something uncomfortable coming through in that you might find uncomfortable, then it'll probably get mentioned in a review. And that's you just doing your research. But you've got no right whatsoever to go and expect the world to be changed or that production to be changed just because you're just a wet, frankly.
And the situation is, they're talking about trigger warnings at the beginning of the show. So by then you've spent your £75, your £100, your £120. You're sitting down, you've got your quality streets, and you're ready for the curtain to be pulled back. Too late by then, isn't it, for you to go, oh my God, I'm going to be triggered by this. Oh my God. Listen, if you've got purple hair, just don't bloody go out. Stay at home in your bedroom. That's what I say. Don't bother going out if you're good with your bloody personal pronouns. Shut up. Stay at home. Or get into the real world.
To be fair, it's not just the racist slur about being white or whatever, but it's also the fact that what's all this privilege nonsense? What's all that about?
Well, yeah, why? I mean, none of us are privileged. We might have white skin, but we haven't been privileged. And why do they always go on about this? Again, it's a knock-on effect from 2020 and all the nonsense that we had to go through there. We've had to scrimp and scrape and go through hardship. The way some of us were born in the bloody 60s and 70s, for crying out loud. Do you know what I mean? Get a grip.
70s, that's all I'm saying.
But some of the guys in the chat were 60s. And they had, but they had it harder than us in the 60s. We in the 70s saw the introduction of central heating in our houses, for crying out loud. These young ones that come along pretending to be journalists and thinking they know it all and think they can preach like that person has with all their nonsense language, they're the lucky ones. You've got drugs now that can cure you. You've got heating. You've got money coming in properly. You can get a job and get money. You can buy food. You don't have to wait for anything as much as we all have to do. They're the privileged ones, not us. Not us at all. It just winds me up. They see I'm triggered now because of idiots like her. Darren is saying, we always liked being scared. I can remember being terrified by invasions of the dinosaurs. Yes, really. When I was 5 back in 1974, my parents wanted to turn the TV off, but I pleaded with them not to. Oh, I think we all did that at one point, didn't we all? Yeah.
That's exactly it, though, isn't it? And I've got to be honest, invasion of the dinosaurs. Yes, the dinosaurs looked naff, but that scene where the T-Rex is chained down in that garage and Sarah's taking the photos and you see the close-up of the head, which was rather good. And it wakes up and she's in there and this dinosaur's waking up, scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Can I answer Blue Worm's question?
Yep.
If I may. The only reason I say that is that running gag. I love Dad's Army, and John Laurie and Private Fraser is my favourite character, and I always use that expression. But it's connected to Scottish people, definitely.
Oh, it certainly is. Yeah.
Going back to the Invasion of Dinosaurs, the bit with the pterodactyl, I think is brilliant. Especially in part 1. That's really scary, I have to say.
It's well cut, isn't it?
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing it again on crystal clear Blu-ray. Gary is saying, trigger warning on the weather, so poor sods don't get wet or cold. I know, it's a shame for them, Gary, isn't it? It really is. And Doug is saying to us here, I'm waiting for the day that there'll be trigger warnings for trigger warnings. You may laugh. You may laugh. But you know what? They do trailers for trailers now.
Yeah.
Come on. Peter's saying, it's all about control. Get your details needed so they can sell you an ideal, a product, cry freedom. Interesting, isn't it? He's also saying he's fully triggered. It's just, isn't it? No, it's up to them. Mysterious Stranger. Ooh, hello, Mysterious Stranger. Theatre has gone too soft. It really has. Now, Mysterious Stranger 42, have you subscribed? And who are you? You know, I'm intrigued. I'm taking it you're out of the UK because you spelled theatre wrong.
Very good point.
It's not technically wrong, GT. It's just it's an American spelling of it, isn't it? So.
Yes, it's wrong. So what we've got, Peter's saying to us, I'm so privileged, gives a job. Now that's something they wouldn't have lived through the 80s, would they? When practically everybody in Britain was unemployed. They wouldn't have got through that. We might have been poor, but we had clean slippers. I can tell you. Yes. Oh, Dave's with us. Does she realize she herself is writing potentially damaging material? And she didn't put a trigger on it, did she, Dave? No. And Paul is saying to us here, well, there we go. We know the correct answer now, thanks to this oxygen thief journalist writing for such a high-end media outlet. Thank goodness for her deciding what is right and what is wrong. Absolutely. Again, these people are really, as Ian highlighted there, they're telling us what we can and cannot do. I mean, we know this for a fact from BBC and from, you know, the people running our favorite TV show. They're telling us, you will think like us. I've said it before. I'll probably be saying it again come May and June. Julia, the only warning you might have got at the theatre was not suitable for children in previous years, which was fine. That's all you need. That's the common sense approach, Julia, isn't it? Really, that is all you need. You know, adults need to be adult again. When did they not grow up, guys?
They'll be asking for a summary of the plot before you go. What's the point?
Yeah. I mean, you go into the theatre for an experience to be taken out, whether it be a gruesome one or a romantic one or an adventure or an excitement or Shakespeare or, you know, whatever it's going to be. You sort of know what you're going to get. I mean, Ibsen's Enemy of the People that Smith is in now, you sort of know what you're going to get because it's Ibsen, you know. You know, and if you've done your research, you know that it's supposed to be fairly heavy with a lot of gaps. So that, you know, it's all that, isn't it? Really, I just these people, Kirsty, what you can say to us, but we've all had a load of poo happen to us in life. Get therapy of stuff like that is going to be traumatic. Excellent point, Kirst.
She should be a psychologist. I've always said so.
Yeah, Doug says he loves being offended. It means I'm alive. That's why he loves this show. What else? Dave is saying, I doubt she herself believes what she writes. It's more than newspapers' preferred line and media programming her. I think it's her as well, though, Dave, to be honest. I think that generation are absolutely up themselves. I'll be very, very honest. I think we've got a real problem coming in. And because they're now in the media, you know, they've come out thinking they know it all from universities or colleges or whatever. They go into the media. And because there's been this awful lot of stuff about, oh, these new people, we need to really listen to them and what have you. That's when I say the adults left the room and never came back in to say, well, actually, that's not how it's done, or actually, that doesn't make sense. Or sometimes I think they've run amok and taken the pee. Julia's also saying, I've been to places where people have walked out. That's the ultimate action. You walk out or change the channel again. Yeah. Sorry, Ian, what were you saying there?
No, I was just saying it goes in a cycle, doesn't it? And eventually, you know, give it a few years, and this pathetic bedwetting warning triggers and everything else will be very much old hat, and people won't bother with them. But all these people now that are pandering to it, like this journalist, they've got nowhere else to go. That defines them. So they're going to be completely, Kitty. I really did misread that. They're going to be completely out of a job, unemployable dross. Because they know nothing else.
Well, I hope the name's a non-de-plume. I'm sure it is.
Oh, there you go. I like that one. Yeah. I mean, but we're seeing this more and more and more. And that particular paper, I wouldn't wipe my bum with it, to be quite honest. Really, that's the reason it stays on.
For that, GT.
Well, that's the reason it's left on the tube. That's the reason it's left on the buses. That's the reason it's left for the cleaners to pick up at the end of the day, isn't it? Because it's absolute. People look at it. I've seen them on the trains and the tubes and stuff like. Oh, throw it there. They don't take anything in. It's really, really not there. Gary is saying to Kirsty, in the 80s, teachers were cool. And we were shown the Killing Fields, Dirty Harry, The Terminator, and the Richard Burton and John Hurt 1984, which included the sex scenes. Yes, they did. And this is what happened. I mean, you know, I remember being shown Jaws when I was about 9 years old in school. It scared the hell out of me. Didn't do it much permanent damage.
When I was at school, we saw...
Thank you, mysterious stranger. Sorry, Ian.
When I was at school, I think it was the O-levels, we saw a film version of Unman, Wittering and Zygo. And that had it wasn't graphic, but there was a sexual assault scene in it. One of the teacher's wives was trapped in the gym and some of the lads did that. It was very much in the dark and everything. But you know, we were at school. I think we were probably about 15 at the time. But it was, you know, no trigger warnings, nothing. It was viewed as part of the film and discussed in context and everything else. That was it. You know,
my English teacher never showed anything like that. He had a reel-to-reel video player, and he used to show black and white recordings of Faulty Towers at the end of term. It was great.
But you can't do that now either, could you?
No. So
you can't do that either. Raymond's actually had a similar line here. Raymond's saying to us the two Ronnies would now get a trigger warning alongside every 70s, 80s, 90s and early zeros sitcom, including the Catherine Tate Show. Absolutely. The Catherine Tate Show now wouldn't be allowed. It would not be allowed because
there's a channel called, is it That's Entertainment? I think it's 150 on cable or something like that, and it's got all these old sitcoms, and every program has a trigger warning before it. Every program.
Yes, yeah, they have. Though, do you know? Sometimes I think it could be because I don't know what you make of this review. Sometimes I'm worried that they might be sued by some precious soul for saying, "Oh, I couldn't sleep for 3 weeks because I watched Open All Hours." Or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So maybe they're covering themselves with that to say, well, we put a trigger warning out, so you tough titty, you can't come back to us.
I think even UK Gold at one point was showing Porridge, and there's various bits where I think Fletcher, played by Ronnie Barker, does the fingers or something, and they've pixelated them out. It's things like that. It's just weird.
It's absolute nonsense, isn't it? I mean, it is really people getting too worked up about all this because of a minority. And as I say, the minority don't go out. Just don't bother. Don't bother with the rest of us. Just stay in your little playpens. Peter's saying to us here, Liverpool in the 80s was a joy. He's been sarcastic. Pete, come on. Liverpool was a riot in the 80s. It really was. You used to walk around in Liverpool in the 80s with a trolley in case the riot kicked off, because then you could put a VCR on a telly or something like that. And happy days. Happy days. They were fine. But Gary, I don't think that's ever going to happen, my friend. And Daryl is saying to us, Mrs. Crisp seems to think people have so much money they can go to the theatre without having the faintest clue about what they're going to see. The theatre, for those of you outside the UK, is astronomically it's really expensive here in the UK, especially, of course, in the West End of London. A mate of mine went to see a play recently, and it was £120, and it wasn't down the front like they used to be. It was towards the back. It's astronomical. I mean, you know, if you're going to go and support the theatre, that's the other. This could actually put people off as well. They're trying to get as many people back into the theatre, aren't they? And Daryl, and this sort of stuff is going to put them off, because why bother? And of course, I don't know if they're doing it outside the UK, but they are showing plays at the cinema now. They're recording the play, aren't they, Paul? They're recording the theatre show and sticking it on at the cinemas to try and gross more income for them.
I mean, since COVID, they had all that issue of having people in confined spaces, and that's slowly coming back, and people are coming back to the theatre, but there's still some people are worried about being in a confined space with no ventilation, that kind of thing. It's a shame.
Yeah, we're getting lots of comments from everybody. Thank you. 7 Much Strikes is saying here, I don't need a trigger warning. Mysterious stranger, you guys run to me. Absolutely. And Doug is saying, I walked barefoot in the snow to get to school and ate lard for school dinners. Toughen up, world. That's what I'm saying. They don't know they've got it made, these kids.
You were lucky, Doug. That's all I'm saying. You were lucky.
He was lucky to get bloody school dinners. Garbage is saying to us, I read about 6 newspapers the other day. The only one that seemed neutral was the Daily Express. Yeah, probably. Well, listen, what happened with this particular thing, as I'm saying here at the top of the show, is that some Doctor Who fans got at Smith because of this. Now, we all know the sort of Doctor Who fans I'm talking about here, and I've got some of the examples because, quite frankly, I got fed up looking at the same old tired story. The fact that Matt Smith simultaneously says that shows shouldn't come with warning, but also says that warnings for things like strobe lighting makes sense, kind of shows that no one has any idea what they're talking about with this issue because it's deliberately incoherent. Really? It's always the privileged white men that say this. So predictable, so arrogant, so ignorant. It's also such nonsense. Completely possible to have exciting, dangerous theatre and have trigger warnings. Matt Smith ruins Doctor Who for me, the sequel. Let's stop giving privileged, privately educated white cis men, what colour hair this person's got, the opportunities to talk about censorship in theatre.
I hate the cis word. I'm really sorry. That's just
It's
nonsense.
such an insult, isn't it? Take your cis and shove it right up your system. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Awful, horrible word. And how dare they label us like that? I know they're all sort of, this TQI cult lot. They are obsessed with labels and making sure everybody fits beautifully into a compartment, aren't they? We've discussed that, and we will continue to discuss that. But that bloody word, don't anybody call me cis, because you'll need a trigger warning with me. I tell you, if you try and do that, I'll tell you. Don't start.
I really hate it. But the whole privileged thing. I know we touched on it, but the whole privileged thing, it's the same as TQ. I'm not going to say LGB because
thank you. Yeah, it's two different things. Yeah,
TQIA rights and the trans rights that they talk about, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, which is why online, if they're questioned, they block rather than respond, because they have no backbone to debate or answer the question. But there are no rights that exist that people aren't trans have, that people are trans don't have. There are no rights that they're missing. They have the same rights that we do. In fact, in some respect, I was talking to a colleague the other day, and he was just saying, because he always refers to his other half as his missus, but he said he's actually not married.
Yeah, that's fair enough, though. I get that.
But it took him ages until somebody did a test case a couple of years ago. Straight people in a relationship couldn't get like same-sex relationship. They get the, not a marriage, but the civil partnership. That's
civil partnerships. Yeah.
And straight people could not get those until a couple of years ago. So actually, there were some rights that existed that straight people didn't have, but that was okay. Yeah. But there's no rights that they have. Just in the same way, there is no privilege. They would not be able to say what privilege you, me, or Paul has that as white people, that black people or brown people or pink people, yellow people, blue people or green people don't have, that we do have. There aren't any at all. And in fact, in some respects, if you look at protesting in London, for example, if you're one of a multitude of colours, you can say what the shit you like about whoever you like and whip up hate and violence. Try and do it as a white person, you're arrested in the back of a van.
Almost immediately as well.
Yeah.
It's a curse. They're talking about the privilege. This is a curse of the white middle class, mainly in the UK. And it's ironic, isn't it, really, that it all comes from them, because they're dictating to the rest of us. Have a good look at yourselves, you absolute lard arses. Blue Worm is saying, have they started putting trigger warnings on Shakespeare yet? Now, interestingly enough, Blue Worm, I did look into it this week, and it's being considered. So we may laugh about it, we may think it's not going to happen, but apparently in the education system, it already is, with certain schools across England and Scotland and, of course, Wales already doing that and already explaining through letters to parents that we're going to be looking at a Shakespeare play and it might offend your little darlings. Do you want to opt out? Now, that's what I've heard this week. How utterly insane. That's on National Bard. It's insanity, rising and rising and rising. Get on with the bloody job and teach these wonderful things. You're there to teach it, not to shy away from the problems or the situations that are put into these wonderful pieces of work. Get the kids to understand them, because there is more relevance in those Shakespeare plays than anything the BBC or its counterparts are churning out today.
Well, Shakespeare's already been attacked for being racist and out of date, and so well, of course it is. It was written in 1606. I mean, it's a long time ago. It's people, the actors were different then, so just go with the flow. And it's beautifully written plays with fantastic storylines, and okay, some of them are quite violent. King Lear's
of course
quite violent.
They are, yeah.
Macbeth's quite violent. Othello's quite violent. But some great drama, you know.
Yeah, but the wonderful thing is, if you're getting a decent teacher like the majority of us would have got, who had common sense in their head, they could teach you this. And then all the situations, you especially when you played it in the, you took the parts on in the class, you would discuss it, wouldn't you? Are they not doing that anymore? But to actually say, some of the wonderful, I mean, can you imagine the Royal Shakespeare Company, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning every 20 minutes? It's insanity.
Well, I'm surprised they've not been asked to stop doing Shakespeare completely and they'll shut down. That'll be the next thing.
It might come, mightn't it?
I don't get how they have to send messages home saying we're going to be looking at this, we're going to be looking at that. But when they're showing a graphic sex video as part of sex education, they don't have to tell parents anything.
Yes, and when I agree with that completely. And when you're also getting, and just for those of you who are new to the show, I'm homosexual, I'm a gay man, and I am going to say this, when you're getting certain situation pushed at primary school kids, as well as youngsters who are under the age of 14, 15 years old in the secondary schools, which deals with graphic things like homosexuality and even how to transgender at the age of 4, that needs to stop as well. That's outrageous. Let the kids be kids. That's why we've gone wrong. One of the reasons, many of the reasons, in my opinion, we've gone wrong in society today, because people are growing up far too quickly. We've had children now for far too long over the last 20, 25 years, having kids at the age of 15. I mean, come on. I mean, this is that gives me a headache.
You have that bizarre thing where they're old enough to decide whether they want to change gender at the age of 4. But Shamima Begum was too young at 15 to decide to join ISIS.
Excellent point. Excellent point. You are watching Whose Views. This is Headlines. This is, as you can tell, our discussion piece of anything that's touching the Doctor Who world. We're currently talking about Matt Smith saying that he agrees that trigger warnings are not necessary at the theatre, and the theatre should be an experience for everybody to go to, which it looks like we're all agreeing with here on tonight's show, including you in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Data Debater is saying used to watch a bunch of video nasties with his mates when we were kids, and it had no adverse effects on them. I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know if the title, The Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, rings any bells for people. Yes,
I was really let down with that when I eventually saw it. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is boring, please. But, you know, strangely, look at the world we're in now. Imagine the trigger warnings and shows like Love Thy Neighbour, says Doug Sims. They are there, though, aren't they? I mean, we've talked about this just before with Paul saying there. Kenny Everett now gets trigger warnings as well on these repeats, you know, because there's some gorgeous dancers. Afghan, yeah. Gary is saying, I'm surprised they even show the news. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't, Gary. It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
In the news, they say when they go into a report, some scenes may be distressing, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Garbage is saying to you, Ian, well said.
Thank you,
well done. That's lovely. And Doug is also saying, my old dad's trigger warning with me was toughen up, princess, and a clip round the ear. I turned out okay. That's what I call parenting, common sense parenting. Because our generation always got that, which the new generations won't, because, of course, you're not allowed to do that anymore, are you? You're not allowed
It's considered Dickensian now, isn't it, to be fair? But yeah.
Well, sometimes I think they need it. They need a good hiding, some of them, I tell you. Kirsty is saying, Third Doctor Ian, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and here's Paul. The Globe has provided online trigger warnings for Richard III, The Comedy of Errors. Why? The Taming of the Shrew. Why? Alerting audiences to potentially upsetting content, including misogynistic themes. Really? Oh, please. That's all gone over my head then. I've never seen it. He's also saying it's also for racism and offensive language and violence and death. Yeah, if they need that for a Shakespeare, then they don't really get out much, do they? No. They really don't. I mean, that's what Shakespeare is
stock and trade. That's William's stock and trade. It's like Tarantino, isn't it, just about?
Absolutely. Daryl is saying to us, there's a very funny line in The Good Life, which is a classic sitcom from 1975 to 77, who's pointing out one of our British greats with a great cast. Tom to Barbara during a candlelit dinner. Of course I love you, silly bitch. Now edited out for TV repeats. But that was funny back in the day, wasn't it? But of course that would probably now offend a small minority. So it gets
probably cut out that gag about the ooh-ah bird as well, probably.
Probably. And it's like we've said before, our classic films, the carry-ons, they're going to be 5 minutes long at some point in the next few years, I tell you, because everything's been put out of those in case somebody happens to watch it, that it'll offend. Well, switch it off then. Don't go to the theatre then. Stop wanting somebody to babysit you. Take the spoon out your mouth and grow up.
It's going to make television, as we can see from our favourite show, television getting blander and blander and blander and blander as it goes on. It'll be just really dull.
Yeah. Julia is also saying to us, what has happened to debates where two opposing sides can put their point across and agreeing to disagree at the end? People have the right to put ideas across without being cancelled. Julia, you're on our level here, and this is what Whose Views is all about. We do welcome other people coming in and saying this. We've actually invited, Julia, some people that don't agree with us to come onto the show. So hopefully one day soon that they'll find time to actually do that and come on and chat with us. That would be brilliant. That'd be a great show for us all, wouldn't it? It'd be really lovely to see them and listen to them and understand where they're coming from. But what happens, Julia, as you're probably aware, is if anything comes across that is putting the other point of view, they will try to cancel them. I'm, of course, talking about things like GB News and Talk TV, which certain people don't like and will try and bring down every single second of the day. I think some of these people don't actually bother to do anything else except try and bring down people that will dare to speak the other side of the coin. You know, if I hear the words far right anymore this weekend, I might puke, which is a British word for being sick, because I'm sick and tired of hearing about this alleged far right, which isn't here. It's not. It's just a different point of view. You absolute nonsense. Another brilliant British word. We're full of British words tonight. It's all the go. In the beginning, says Pete, was the word triggered. What are you saying, Ian?
Just you'll like that. I'm getting the word nonce. She'll love it.
Timescales is joining us. What's this? His wife and himself got trigger warnings at a museum recently. What? What the hell? What sort of museum? I'll tell you something. Oh, I'm off. There are certain museums in Amsterdam where you need the trigger warning.
Yes.
And I was glad of one of them, I tell you, because even that took me by surprise. I was like, you do what? I'm out of here. Whoa!
Spain of blushes, certainly, yeah.
Oh, whoa! So where was he? Maybe Trigger TV, says Birthday Boy, is an idea. They can all tune in and we can get on with life. I just say lock them up, basically. We used to have padded cells, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got rid of them once upon a time. I think we need to bring them back. That's my comment on that one as well.
You should get the helmet and the elbow pads and the knee pads. You used to have the skateboard in the 70s.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Darren is saying, I found a trigger on a broom recently. Why, did it have batteries? Oh, it's bizarre where we're going on that one, isn't it? But listen, keep your comments coming, everybody. Really, really appreciate it. But that's where we're up to with that. To Matt Smith, I would say good on you. To Ray Fiennes, I would say good on you. And gosh, they must be having it absolutely. It's no wonder people keep their mouths closed, isn't it, in the show business industry right now? Because they're of certain ages now, and they're white and they're heterosexual. Not the in thing in this crazy world and society we find ourselves in.
Can't believe Matt Smith's 41, though. That makes me feel so old.
It is shocking. It is shocking, isn't it? It's shocking. Well, listen, we're going to stay with fan reactions. And if you need it, please take a pill at the moment, because we're going to trigger you even some more on this edition of Headlines from Whose Views. I'm here with Paul and the Third Doctor Ian, as you can see. Thank you for joining us. Well, Millie Gibson has been in the news this week as well. And yes, this particular story did trigger all the usual suspects. Have they not been round to know what the British media is like? This has been around, this next story, for decades, and especially since a certain princess arrived on the scene in 1981. But here we go. This is it. From The Mirror, Millie Gibson looks downcast as she's seen for the first time since Doctor Who Axe. It continues. Millie Gibson made her debut as Doctor Who's companion in the Christmas special, but then it was revealed Varada Situ, whose name I hope I am still pronouncing correctly, would be replacing her in the sci-fi series. Coronation Street star Millie Gibson cut a glum figure, says The Mirror, as she was papped for the first time since being dropped from Doctor Who. Is it me, or is the language on these things these days absolutely lazy as well? The actress, 19, only made her debut in the sci-fi show at Christmas before it was announced she would be playing the Time Lord's companion for just one series. Seen in Manchester today, so this was a couple of days ago, sporting a tan baseball cap with her blonde locks hidden beneath it, a multicoloured Carhartt fleece, they have to get in the name, don't they? Baggy bleached jeans and Ugg books, very Manchester. Millie took a walk in the windy weather with her parents. The actress appeared to be keeping a low profile in her cap as she was spotted leaving a coffee shop with her hands in her pockets alongside her mum, dad and the family dog Spike. Sorry for laughing. The Mirror reported the decision by Doctor Who showrunner Russell Don't Drop the T Davis to write out the former Coronation Street star who plays Orphan Ruby Sunday was made last year after filming on her first run ended. The sudden twist came as a shock to fans who only watched Millie on-screen debut in the festive episode in December. Millie will not be appearing in the 2024 Christmas special later this year and will make only a handful of appearances across Ncuti Gatwa's second series as the Doctor during 2025. And they did include some pictures. I'll show you them here. You've probably seen these before this week, but there she goes. She was in Manchester and left the coffee shop with her parents and dog Spike. Hello to him. And it made the headlines. So therefore, it's made our headlines. But what we're more interested in that is the response from certain Doctor Who fans. Stand by your beds. She probably looks downcast because you're stalking her and taking photos without consent while she's trying to go about her day-to-day life. Shameful and creepy, frankly creepy behavior. How do you all not feel terrible invading one's privacy and posting sensationalist drivel? Maybe you are the ones who need to look in the mirror. So the Mirror is just stalking an 18-year-old now. Cool, 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 cool. Leave her alone. She's an 18-year-old kid. It continues. Leave her alone. There is zero news justification for this. It's harassment. Why am I not surprised the Mirror is stalking 18-year-old girls? I think if anything, the Mirror needs to be axed. Same goes with the rest of this unnecessary, disrespectful press. Stop stalking her. It's all there. It was all there from these people. And I was reading more and more and more, just thinking these people don't know how the press works, do they? Once you get into the public eye, unfortunately, you're fair game to these people, aren't you?
Well, that's why she's dressed down to try avoid being caught by people. That's why she's wearing a baseball cap and she's not wearing flamboyant clothes and look at me, look at me. She wants to be kept herself to herself. You know, it's daft. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we know ourselves because we grew up at the time. I mean, we will remember when the paparazzi was not a thing and when they were not going after people to try and earn their keep, to try and earn the money, because the papers pay for these things. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we remember that time when it wasn't there. And these youngsters that are coming in saying things like that, they're just as bad, really, because just ignore them. When these sort of things come out, I would say to them, don't get offended by it. Just say to yourselves, they're all arses.
Yeah.
This is what they do. And don't acknowledge them, but certainly don't go back, I would say, to the paper and say blah, 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 because they're not going to look at it. And these paparazzis have been around now for, what, 30, 35 years, maybe more now?
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel for the fans that reacted in that sort of way, but also I'm thinking, don't.
You're wasting your breath trying to address that. It's never going to work. But it's a bit of a non-story anyway in the Mirror about her being fired, because that's not come out properly anyway in any facts. Bizarrely, newspapers not having any factual information is fairly unusual, isn't it? Let's be fair. But the story, I mean, it's fairly common practice for any companion. Like, look at Freema when she played Martha. She was in the first series 3, then did some cameos in series 4, etc. And I think Russell's got a formula with that kind of thing. So Millie's doing the same kind of thing. So what's the problem? It's a non-story, isn't it, to be honest?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And to all those young people that we're getting back, don't get offended by this. Don't get triggered by this, to use your vernacular. Don't get upset about it. Try and ignore it, because you're not going to have any impact on them. They will laugh at you and just continue to do it, because unfortunately, that industry is still huge. And basically, that's how they earn their money and pay their rent. That's how they do it. They give photo after photo, and they get paid huge amounts for some of them. And whether she likes it or not, Millie Gibson at the moment will be for the next year news until she's off screen. In my opinion, it's very, very, very. What's the word I'm looking for here? I can't remember. It's a miss of the BBC and Bad Wolf to put something out there officially to try and take the heat off her and leave her alone. Do you not think?
I mean, part of the problem is they're filming so far in advance. This is inevitable. That's going to happen. Like I said before, Ncuti will be gone before it's even broadcast the way it's going. You know, so it's like it's just they're not. You're right. They should be saying something, but then it's their own fault for trying to prepare too much in advance as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Glenn is with us. Hello, Glenn. Nice to see you. No, I'm pretty sure Millie was fine. When you're out shopping, you're not going to be smiling constantly. Do these people live in the real world? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, whether you look glum or not, you know, and as Paul said here, she's obviously trying to just be incognito. and what have you, keeping her head down. You're not expecting to be papped, really, are you? Anywhere, but I'm sure. You know, none of us walk around constantly grinning in case there happens to be a
you don't dress up to go and buy a pint of milk, do you? Let's be honest. You know?
Yeah. There he is. There. He's also saying, when I'm walking
yeah.
around, I can look at misery at times. It doesn't mean I'm out. She's out with her family, not having to put on a fake hat by smiling constantly. It's exactly that. It's exactly that.
I think there's various sides to this, isn't there? I mean, yeah, she's probably not wanting to be caught at the minute, but you know, you turn it back a few months when she was the up and coming, and she'd have loved it. Whether she was out shopping for milk or out on a formal red carpet do, she'd have loved it. Now she's the other side of the coin, potentially. And again, these that are saying she's an 18, 19-year-old kid. No, she's not 18. You're an adult. End of. There's no 18-year-old children. She's an adult, whether they or she likes it or not. It's the real world. But also,
it's the world she's in as well. It's show business.
Yeah, but she's used to this kind of kind of attraction from the press. She did like a couple of years on Corrie, so she's not inexperienced about this kind of stuff, is she? Really?
But, true.
Exactly. But also those that are complaining, saying leave her alone, stalking, and all this kind of thing. Some of them will probably a little bit lefty and quite happily support somebody or a group of people outside, say perhaps an MP's house, shouting, chanting, and scaring his kids. You know, they're probably
true.
Yeah. So there's lots of different angles to it, I think.
That's very true. And you're right to mention that, because yes, some of them will be, and I know some of those comments I took there as well are from some of the fans that will just get at everything, including getting at Matt Smith, by the way, for what he said about the theatre that we've just covered. But Gary is making an excellent point here, guys, as well. Everyone is the paparazzi now, but the smartphones, very true, because you can't go anywhere now with people taking bloody pictures all the time. And if you are in the show business now, and you are in the public eye, and you're certainly into Doctor Who, that must get tiring now. You know, because you can't even go into Tesco's or Waitrose or wherever you're going to go now and get your loaf of bread now without somebody going, ooh, look at all that stuff we had at the end of last year with Tom was going out for a coffee and suddenly people are taking pictures of him in the street and stuff like that. So, no, Gary, you're right to say this as well. Also, I'd like to tie in with Ian's point there and what Paul was saying too. She is 18, 19, around about that age. But if you look at her personal Instagram page, she's very mature.
Yeah.
And those photos she takes of herself are very mature. So we've got that. Well, but my point about this as well, to the alleged Doctor Who fans who will not be on our page, I would just say to them, don't wind yourselves up with this. Don't get excited about this, because the paparazzi do not care. They just don't care, and they haven't. I would tell you to go back to August 1997 to look at what the effects could be. We were talking about the Crown.
They're looking for a quick buck to make some money, and that's all they're interested in.
Yeah, amazing. Paul is saying all these people, and I mean all, will be watching TikToks and Instagram reels of teens and early 20-year-olds putting themselves in the public eye. Millie was happy to share pics in a bikini recently. Absolutely. And some of them even get paid for it now. You know, didn't she? Garbage is saying to us here, she has left Doctor Who. We don't know why. The BBC haven't said why. So it's why she is in the newspaper. She was publicised everywhere. There was a segment of Children in Need devoted to the new companion. Yeah. Again, very, very true. And that's why I'm saying it's irresponsible. Oh, that's the word I couldn't think of. It's irresponsible of the BBC and the production partners not to come out and say, yes, she's left. Yeah. It's not going to be a surprise when it happens at the end of the series in May or June this year, that because we know about, you know, it's as though I'm speculating that it's as though they fell out again, just like they did with Eccleston. You know, and I'm speculating now. I don't want to start any rumours, but it's that. But look after your staff.
But it's the same feeling narratively, like Eccleston was as well. There'll be no tension, no drama. You know she's going, so there's not all that built up good faith for the first episode for them. There's no tension, no like, oh, what's going to happen next? You know she's leaving. It's just disappointing.
Yeah, this is the downside, though, isn't it, Paul and Ian? When you've got actors and you go into such a big show like that, and that's where it's actually essential, that your predecessor gets in touch with you to actually say, especially when you're bringing in. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to bring in 18 or 19-year-olds into this show at all. If I was producing, I would say, no, that's off limit. Let's have more mature actors that can deal with the amount of press you're going to get. Because some of that paparazzi, and we hear about it, don't they? On other shows, some of these kids do go off they think it's all glitz and glam.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not. It can be very invasive and quite nasty when it comes to other sides of it. I sometimes don't think they prepared them properly. So why we're bringing in 18 and 19-year-olds into this, I think it's not a so.
When they brought Billie Piper in, was she not 25 playing a 17, 18-year-old? And so someone a wee bit older. So that's why they do that. That's why they have older actors playing younger parts, because they're a bit more mature in their sensibility, understanding of what they're getting into.
But again, on the people complaining about it, they're probably, or some of them are still the same people that say a 4-year-old can transition. So don't give me any concern about an 18 or 19-year-old. I don't hold with it. If that's their view on a 4-year-old, then an 18, 19-year-old is well enough able to cope with the world.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Because society has now created this whole thing, the technology itself, in such a short time. Because of course we never grew up with this technology, which is why I think we're more based in common sense and reality, and can actually call people of our own age and the generation before us out for climbing on misinformed bandwagon so they can look cool or down with the kids. And it's why I'm always crying out to say, excuse me, will the adults please come back into the room and just be adult? Because look at what's being created for these youngsters around them. It's utter. It's a nightmare. It must be. I would hate to be young in this world today, because it must be so confusing for them and full of noise, and just lots of static. It must be blooming awful for them. But when I saw what the fans were doing there, I just wanted to bring it into the show as well and get everybody's take on here. And I would say to them again, don't bother with them. Don't go defending the actor or the actress. Don't go defending them. Don't give it the time of day, because without people buying these things or really going into it, that's the only way we're going to. I mean, as I say, we've had it since the Ken and Deirdre scandal in 1983 on Corrie. That's where it all started. And then when a certain young lady came around and became a princess, that's where it all took off. You'll remember it, guys, won't you?
Went crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
Oh, well. It is a mess, everybody, isn't it? It is a mess. Goodness knows where it's going. But to Millie Gibson as well, hopefully you'll get a nice new, sparkling, fabulous new job. But I do wish the BBC Studios and Bad Wolf make a blooming announcement and just put everybody at ease and take the pressure off her. Because at the moment, she can't even go for a cup of coffee with her mum and dad and her dog without somebody clambering out of her bin and taking a picture. Anyway, there we go. Yes, this is Whose Views. It's Headlines. Welcome. It's nice to see you all. Keep your comments coming. And thank you very much if you've just joined us in the channel. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, as they say on these sort of things. How exciting. Mm-hmm. Now listen, everybody. Paul, Third Doctor Ian, everybody in the chat. Have you heard? Doctor Who is ambitious and brave. Oh, yes, that's the next headline for you now, because this, of course, is coming from this particular person who will be a name brand new to a lot of us. This is Lindsay Salt. She is the BBC Director of Drama, and she has said, Doctor Who has never been more ambitious and brave. This is from the Radio Times, where BBC Director of Drama Lindsay Salt said that Doctor Who, following its 60th anniversary, has never been more ambitious and brave. She said, there's something about this moment, the current climate in our industry, that makes our approach to risk even more essential. While others might become more cautious, we will go further to take the risks others won't, to task all the producers and creatives in this room to keep pushing those boundaries and to venture further into the creative unknown. While others might become more cautious, we will go further to take the risks others want. It's just bizarre, that line, isn't it? She carries on. Real risk-taking is also about protecting those dangerous moments in scripts. Those moments where you sit up and think, wow, I've never seen that before. Or, are you allowed to do that? The paper, the Radio Times, then goes on to say, Ncuti Gatwa's first full season of Doctor Who will begin in May, with the BBC releasing a trailer at Christmas teasing what's to come. Season 14 will see the Doctor and companion Ruby Sunday, played by Millie Gibson, meet the Beatles in the 1960s, encounter Jinx Monsoon's terrifying villain, and adventure to the Regency period with a character played by Jonathan Groff. We can't wait. Well, I'm glad you can't, Radio Times, because I certainly can.
Can I say, so I'm going to need a trigger warning for this upcoming season. I have to say that now. So.
Let's hope they put one out onto BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Three, BBC Four, wherever, the radio channels, the lot, saying you may be triggered by this particular season, because that's exactly what it's going to do to a lot of common sense. But what do you think about this? Lindsay Salt's comments, Doctor Who has never been more ambitious and brave, and then going on to talk about what she expects from her drama. This is the director of drama for the BBC.
Reminds me of Catherine Tate's Nan. What a load of old. Anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you just look at it, and this upcoming season is going to be riddled with TQIA people, characters, actors, and a drag queen, and that's what's on the rest of television all the time. So I don't see what's stunning and brave about that at all. I think Doctor Who was stunning and brave in 1963 when it had a 26-year-old female Jewish producer and a gay Asian director. That was stunning and brave, especially in that environment where there were lack of rights for people like that. And now it's not brave. It's just doing what everybody else is doing, and it's preaching and it's following an agenda. It's not stunning and brave at all. And she's full of shit. Allegedly.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what her definition of stunning and brave actually is, because it's a weird take on it.
It is bizarre, isn't it? Dave is saying to us, well, she is paid to say this, and she just has to justify her job. Yeah. Yes, especially when you've got it's the license fee, and we know what's happening with the license fee. We know that people are not happy. We're going to be talking about the BBC gone woke again in a up and coming headlines, so we've got that there as well. Ambitious and brave, says Paul. Yeah, it is brave to sail so close to cancellation. And Blue Worm is telling us, as soon as something is claimed to be brave, I run in the opposite direction. I think most of us do now, don't we? Doug is also saying to us, forget ambitious and brave, give me entertaining and well written. Well said, Doug.
Yeah, just give us Doctor Who, for God's sake.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Raymond is telling us ambitious and brave, but not exciting, funny, or scary. Simon's not in the chat tonight, which is a shame, because I would like to have known what he thought about this, to be quite honest. So hopefully he'll comment with us, leave a comment. Paul, Radio Times, the leftist mouthpiece of the BBC, absolute trash. We've got to point out there, because you've said that, Paul, of course, it no longer is a BBC publication. It's assigned with, but it's not done by the BBC. It is independent. It's run by an independent company. But yes, of course, they are in bed with the BBC and will kiss its arse at any point, so they can keep their stories coming and get the breaks and get to go to those lovely little premieres of Doctor Who. Mysterious Stranger 42 is telling us, God, I miss proper Doctor Who so much. Hey,
don't we all?
Yeah. Darren is also telling us yet more shallow PR nonsense from the BBC. They don't even believe it themselves, but expect us to. Do you know what? What I'm worried about there, Darren, is that they absolutely do believe what they're churning out, because they keep doing it. You know, and it's like we said in one of our previous headlines when we actually queried with the BBC about the recent RTD posts on his Instagram, and we got that message back from them, basically saying it's nothing to do with us. He's not a BBC employer. We don't employee. We don't want to know. And yet, it's Doctor Who. It's Doctor Who. So you should want to know, and you should have some sort of responsibility. You know,
they've got oversight.
Yeah, it would be great if they were saying, they're wanting her to say this is going to be absolute shit, you know, and that's what they're saying. And if you read between the lines, that's what they're trying to say. So.
Yeah. Go back to those Channel 4 days when they were showing risque stuff in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had that little yellow triangle in the corner.
Yes.
We can now just have the third emoji in the top right-hand corner.
And of course, in hindsight, we know that was just down to marketing, because the films were quite rubbish, and they were usually some sort of European crap. You know, so you had to have the subtitles as well. And I hate films with subtitles, viewers. I can't be done with this. I have to concentrate and I can't be bothered. I'm trying to look at what the performance is like and what the direction is like. And I've got to read what's going on. Please do me a favor. Glenn is saying, was it stunning and brave to have Shooty have his first scene in his underwear? My poor mother has still not got over that. She'll still bring it up in conversation. Why wasn't he wearing trousers? She did not like that at all. Dave Mullen is coming back to us to say, with shrinking budgets and audience share pressures, I don't believe the BBC can even risk being brave, not in its commissioning at least.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. And because it's now actually infiltrated an awful lot by the extreme left ideologists as well, as we are seeing all the time, the ones that know better and like to dictate to the British public, it's very likely that we're not going to get anything original, or it's rare, isn't it? You know? Garbage is also telling us the Brookside lesbian kiss. Now, that was a big story. It blooming was back in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Brookside, for those of you outside the UK that won't know this, was a massive, fabulous, in my opinion as well, soap opera based in Liverpool. And it was about a close, as we call it here. It was about a row of houses in a cul-de-sac and all the neighbours and the goings-on. It became more and more wild towards the end, I have to say, as soap operas started to sensationalise everything. But at the very beginning, for the first, 10, 15 years, it was superb because it dealt with everyday Liverpoolian life. And the characters were relatable and agreeable. And it showed you then. Do you remember, guys? They were always clashing, weren't they? They never all got on, but they lived together and they tolerated each other's politics and all that. Oh, it was just
written by Phil Redmond of Grange Hill fame as well, which is fabulous. Yeah.
Well, it was, wasn't it? It was absolutely brilliant. But no, that point was it was a big story. That was the first lesbian kiss on TV. Now it's on every 20 seconds. Quite frankly, you can't get away from it all now in everything, including probably at some point in our beloved TV show as well. Yeah.
Have we not had it already? I'm sure we have, haven't we?
I've no idea. Yeah.
Didn't they do one with Vastra, Madame Vastra, and our maid, and they kissed, and there was a huge furore about that in Deep Breath. Wasn't there some kind of thing?
If they did, I've forgotten. But because that was a lizard.
Yeah, well, takes all sorts, GT, doesn't it? What can I say? But yeah.
I mean, really, I know it's science fiction, but human with a lizard, it didn't sit to me. It didn't sit with me on that one. But yeah, so let's have a look at that again from Lindsay Salt. What I want to know here, what do you all think about this? There's something about this moment, the current climate in our industry, show business, that makes our approach to risk even more essential. While others might become more cautious, we will go further to take the risks others won't, to task all the producers and creatives in the room to keep pushing those boundaries and to venture into the creative unknown.
Not if you miss sight of the fact it's meant to be entertaining at the same time, though.
But what's she getting at?
Oh, that's not important. She means
it's not obviously no.
She means pandering to minorities. That's what she means. Fixed it for her. Pandering to minorities. That is their sole reason for being. And the only thing that will change that and bring back proper risk taking and innovation is if the BBC lost its bloody license fee, and it would have to compete. Then you would see. Until then.
I too agree with you. As you know here, defund the BBC is a massive operation, if you like, that's gaining momentum every single week here in the UK, with people coming on board and finding its Facebook page, its X pages, its websites, what it's about, the fact that they are pushing to defund the BBC so that it becomes a private company. And you're right, Ian, once that happens, and it's going to happen at some point, and it will happen in our lifetimes because it's sooner rather than later now, they are going to have a shock, because if they have to run to a subscription service or what have you, the immediate loss for that business will shake them to their very core, because at the moment they're just blooming complacent, aren't they? Oh, we've got the money coming in, and like a lot of public sector influencers, let's just spend it like we want to.
It's like business models, isn't it? I mean, I remember years ago on the old Outpost Gallifrey, there was Mike Tucker. I think it was Mike Tucker. So I'm going to say allegedly, but I'm pretty certain it was Mike Tucker, but allegedly. There was a conversation about DVD releases, and somebody was talking about box sets, because at that point there hadn't been any. And he was of the view that box sets wouldn't sell, so there wouldn't be any. And of course, how wrong could you be?
Yeah.
But also, when people were talking about the BBC going to a subscription model, there was all that talk about subscription models wouldn't work. But now you've got Apple TV, Netflix, and all the others, and subscription models really do work. So there's no hiding now. There's no particular dirty little rock the BBC can hide under or bury its head in the sand anymore. Those models work, and they can work very efficiently, more efficiently than the TV license, where, if you watch it online, do you have a license? Yes. And you can only watch it from the UK. And we know that that's not true. So the subscription has to be the way to go, because it's fairer as well. It's just fairer on the British public. You should not have to be forced to pay for something just because it says so. If you don't watch it, you shouldn't have to pay for it. And I think that's what will be the real driver of change.
It's going to have to be, because they cannot hold the threat of us all going to jail for not paying it for much longer. But bearing in mind as well that I always say this as well, because this concerns me, that certain members of the Labour Party, who are our shadow party at the moment, and who are probably going to get into being government in the elections later this year, some of their members are in favour of compelled speech. So I think they're going to need bigger jails to misquote a certain person on a boat with a big fish. Because I think most of us are going to be in there come Christmas. You know what I mean? It's very concerning. This is where we're at with these do-gooders. Paul is saying something to us here. If Doctor Who was truly brave, it would have carried on as it was, and there was nothing wrong with it. Instead, it folded to pressure to please a minority of fans and tick boxes. That's not brave. And that's the thing with it as well, Paul, isn't it? Because it's not just Doctor Who. The BBC has done that as itself. It has shed so many license fee payers. They have tried, as most of that side of the industry have, to stop people going over to GB News and talk radio, talk TV, because their audiences are growing weekly as people start to say, we're not going to watch the BBC or the commercial channels now, we're going to go and watch that. And that's the alternative point of view. And yet somebody somewhere all the way will always come back and say, we've got to go to Ofcom to complain about those two. And it happens again just this week with GB News itself, didn't it? Another complaint to Ofcom now, because the Prime Minister dared to want to speak to the British people. An offer that was given to all the political leaders. And because they're terrified of what some people will say, they didn't accept, allegedly. They didn't accept.
Well, going back to the quality of the BBC, people bang on about the fact that viewing habits have changed. People are not watching TV the same way. Well, they're not, because the quality of the BBC isn't very good. So that's why people aren't watching. That's why people are leaving it in droves. They've got a biased news service, and allegedly, and the programming is crap. So I mean, it's like, that's why people are leaving. It's not to do with changing viewing habits, or they are jumping to Netflix or Apple TV, whatever, and not bothering with the BBC.
And again, I'm going to mention it, Paul, because as you know, I totally agree with you on that one. But look at Gladiators and the success it's had with the overnight ratings. We're going to bring that up again. Oh, yeah, because that's been a huge success, because it's not political in any way. It's entertainment, and people seem to be attracted to it and have watched it. And it's getting between 7 and 8 million overnights a week. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Blue Worm, something controversial for everybody here. Speaking of triggers, Jinx Monsoon publicly and graphically detailed his sex life on a podcast. RTD is okay with that, but not shooty cursing in private. Well, of course, because it's double standards all the way through. There are other things we could say that RTT is okay with, but not with other stuff. We've covered them on headlines. We probably will be covering them all again as well. Simon is here. Hello, Simon. Nice to see you. I'm here watching at double speed, so I can't comment at the same time.
Very good.
We've made it, guys. We're on fast forward. Fantastic. That's good.
Yeah, and he is reminding us as well, he doesn't like spoilers of any sort. So that is fair enough. And it was Simon that was actually saying to me, I should actually say, I'll count that as a trigger warning, though. And he's also saying it's brave to say, re-RTD's comments, for those listening, it is brave to say just about anything these days, is it not? That's a very good point, Simon. Yeah, you can't say boo to a goose now, can you? Frank, hello to Frank. He's joining us again. Everybody knows the best soap was El Dorado. Of course, originated by our very own Verity. That would have gone somewhere, let's face it. El Dorado would have got there eventually if they just had the faith and believed in it a bit more. With a couple more years, it would have got there. I know. I hated it at the time, but looking back at it now, it had the ground there to be something.
Even Verity made a mistake. You know what I mean? She was a genius, but she made a mistake there. Yeah.
And you're allowed to do that unless you're living in today's in today's world. You
know what you're saying about triggering, though? One big trigger for a large chunk of the population is the police and the word police. And the word police features in a very large element of Doctor Who, doesn't it? I think it just sticky neck out here, but you know, how long do you think it'll be before the police box is problematic? And all of a sudden the chameleon circuit is repaired by this genius new Doctor of Colour. He repairs the chameleon circuit where so many white male actors haven't been able to. And
that's essentially too. Colin managed to do a couple of attempts at it, didn't he?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Just say, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I just hope it's not an organ again. That's going to be problematic in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some sort,
Yeah. And you couldn't even make the joke now, tinkle the ivories these days, could you?
No, exactly. No, you couldn't.
No, although, of course,
That's
I will.
different connotations entirely, JT.
It really has.
Yeah.
Richard has joined us. Good evening, folks. What Madness is Doctor Who this time? Nice to see you, Richard. We're nearly finished. You'll have to go back and watch the show and join the conversation. Leave us a comment. Absolutely. And Simon is telling us all up to sleep now. He's got up to date. So well done, you. Well done, you. Yes, so we have had a look at this. Let's have a look at this. I've heard rumours about the police box, says Paul, since Disney came in. I was discussing this with Gemma, who's on here tonight. Yes, she is. And hello to Gemma. Hello to Gemma. Nice to see you. The police box, yeah. I mean, do you know, can you imagine if they got rid of the police box of the TARDIS? Do you remember when John joked about it? John Nathan Turner joked about it in 84, 85, as you're saying there, Paul. There was an uproar at the time, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And thousands upon thousands of kids. I remember John saying this. Thousands of kids wrote into the Doctor Who office saying, please don't. Our parents have explained, or my teachers explained. It's absolutely fine, blah, blah, blah. It was all a big publicity stunt by John. But these days, it wouldn't be. It would be like they've done with Davros. It'd be a case of, oh, that might be triggering, or that might be offensive, or we've decided it's going to be offensive, so we're now turning it into a Portaloo.
But you needed to analyze all this. You need to analyze all these things before you take on the IP, because Doctor Who is a great show. Leave it alone. If you don't want to use the trappings of the show, do something else.
Yeah.
And we're all agreed, I think, there. And yeah, if you're not in the chat, please let us know if you're not agree with that. I think we all are, because they've it's just ruining every single minute. Every single minute they're taking this British legendary television show, this classic bit of telly, and bastardizing it to suit their outlook on life, which is actually, when you look at the whole of the British public, in the minority. That's what I'm going to say, because that's what I think. If you think I'm wrong, let us know. If they get rid of the police box, that will be the final end, says Darren. I think the final end's been and gone, mate, to be honest. We'll have to see what happens come May. And Daryl is saying to us, I just stick to vintage TV these days. Series like Secret Army and I, Claudius, massage your intellect rather than make you roll your eyes in boredom. Spot on. I've mentioned it before on the show, Daryl. I found, great TV recently, and they show the Avengers every night. You know, we're currently on series 6, the last series. I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually go into the new Avengers. Yes,
I love the new Avengers. That's my favorite.
Oh, well, I don't really remember it, Paul. So I'll be looking forward to seeing if they do it.
I used to have on video the new Avengers, and I watched it to death in the 80s and 90s. Loved it.
Oh, yeah.
Per Day, Mike Gambit, fantastic stuff. But my favorite channel of old TV is Talking Pictures TV, and they show old movies. Lots of Hartnell films are on there all the time, and they've been showing old BBC shows like May Gray and Secret Army, and The Brothers have just started as well. They're showing Gummidge. They're showing Wuzzle Gummidge and stuff like that. So there's loads of things on there for viewers of a certain maturity.
Yeah, but that sort of stuff should actually be presented to these new lot that are coming in. You know, some of the younger ones and stuff. Go and watch Wuzzle Gummidge, because that'll offend you, and then get over it, because it would. I mean, you know, the fact he takes his heads off every now and then will scare them to death.
Well, Wuzzle Gummidge, I did a rewatch of the entire series a couple of years ago. I think it'd been during COVID, and it was, I've forgotten how dark it was, how quite scary it is in places as well. Great show. And fantastic performance from the cast, particularly Mr. Pertwee. Definitely.
Oh, of course. And he loves every minute of it, you know. Yeah. But it can be. But all those other things, Catweasel, all these, they need to go and watch all this stuff. Never mind all this trigger warning nonsense on them. And some of the comedy as well. You know, we were talking about, somebody was mentioning The Good Life. Was it Daryl? The Good Life is edited now. How pathetic is this? You know, God, can you imagine with Butterflies, you wouldn't get a show. The Mistress, Solo, Bread. You wouldn't really get shows coming out, would you? Because Lilo Lil in Bread, the tart from over the road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, please. It's absolutely ridiculous. Richard is saying, I bought The Young Ones and Father Ted recently. I miss entertainment in these dark times. You're never going to get comedy like that right now, because they're too busy thinking they are clever. We were talking about a certain alleged comedian on Headlines just a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
That whole ilk. I'd ask for my money back, wouldn't you?
You need to be allowed to be funny. And there's I think John Cleese has a great video about comedy and about the fact that comedy criticizes people If you can't criticize people and make someone a joke, it doesn't work. So comedy can't be overanalyzed. It has to work as a joke. And if you can't be funny, comedy's doomed.
Absolutely. Gemma is saying to us, the police box is iconic and it would be ridiculous to change it. Of course it would, and it wouldn't work because that's the whole Britishness of the Doctor, isn't it? And the show, it's a police box in time and space. It's part of the fun. You don't get that with anything out of the UK, do you? It's absolutely ridiculous, although it was tried with those big movies with Bill and Ted. David is also saying, but Doctor Who is all about change. Yes. Was it? I never got that. I really never got that. I think that was an excuse. Really.
Yeah.
Glenn, does the Timeless Child still count as canon, or did right on this show? No, it doesn't. Thanks, Glenn. Good night. He knows I'm kidding. Julia is saying to us, if it is stunning and brave, why was the new series not shown in January to capitalize on the 60th and Christmas shows? Why wait until May? One day we may know. We may know, because we are asking questions about this as well on this channel. So if we find out, we'll let you know. Because why, when the production team wanted it out in January, why was it put back till May? If we find out, we'll let you know. And vice versa, if you guys let us know, drop us a line. Kirsty's put the email there for you. It's whosviews1@gmail.com. Simon is saying to us, the TARDIS in the theme is Doctor Who. The bit in the middle comes and goes. I'll wait for it to come back. I have great hope. I know you do, Simon, and I really respect you for having that. But my hope flushed down a toilet long ago. Ooh, he says, new Avengers coming soon. Oh, I thought you meant the new Avengers was coming. We know, yes, they're remaking the Avengers, and I'm not looking
They're remaking the X-Files as well, apparently.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord, absolutely ridiculous. Data debate, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The lovely Joanna Lumley. I hope you repeat it because I really want to see all this with Gambit and everything like that as well.
Look out for the giant rat. It's fabulous.
Oh, I don't remember that as well. I don't remember that. Oh, really? See, I don't really remember the new Avengers because I was only young and I didn't catch up with any repeats or anything. So I don't know. So I hope they do. Yeah, lots of comments coming here for you. Of course, everything's offensive. Everything from the oldie days is going to be offensive to us all.
I can't wait for people in about 50 years' time looking back on now and seeing how offensive that might be.
Yeah.
Oh, let's hope the tide turns. I really, really do hope the tide turns. Well, listen, everybody, we've come to the nearly the end of the show. We've got one more item for you, but and this item hopefully will cheer you up a little bit because I don't know about you, but this show has been a roller coaster. And who's up for a drink? Certainly, I know that Lex Kane will be because he's gone out and got some ice.
Oh, lovely. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, Lex saw this on social media and sent it to me. Thank you very much for that. But look at that. You can we were talking about Revelation just the other night there on this channel. That's real glass Dalek, that isn't it? It's pure ice, and that will go very nicely. Parts of it in your G&T,
and on Spyridon as well.
And on Spyridon, yeah. Isn't that fabulous? So whoever did that, congratulations, and I'm glad we've got that on photograph because that is, of course, a little bit of a piece of art for you, isn't it, everybody? Paul is actually agreeing with that, saying it's awesome. Yep. What else we got there? Kirsty needed that last night for my whiskey. Ice in whiskey? Oh, so common. Very ice
as well. Yes, she has. Yes.
And did you know, everybody? I learned this from a friend's show the other night on the radio. Iron Brew actually has some iron in it.
Yes, made from girders, apparently.
Made from girders, literally. Yeah. I really didn't get the link there, Paul, all these years. I thought that was brilliant when they told me that on their radio show the other night.
It was a great publicity campaign for a very long time, amongst others. Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. Ice hot, says Frank. Oh, that's good. We've heard that before, haven't we? We have heard that before. Listen, everybody, we are at the end of the show now. Thank you so much for joining us. We, as ever, really appreciate you joining in with our chats and putting in your comments because you helped to put the show together and to drive this show. Huge thank you to Paul and Third Doctor Ian, as ever, for their comments here on Headlines. If you're new to the channel, as ever, please subscribe, ring that bell for all the notifications of when our next shows are coming up. We've got some great shows coming up for you. Well, I hope you're going to like them coming in March. And of course, as soon as they drop a headline, we'll be back here for you to talk about it. Until we see you again, bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice rest of the night. Have a good day if you're outside the UK. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Ian.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye bye. Like and subscribe.